little bit about me. My name is Jim Apodaca. I'm a strategy and execution coach. I work with organizations and teams to develop strategy and then execute on that strategy using change management frameworks, including OKRs and Scrum. I've been in software for a number of years, 15 plus years, and during that time, I've been fortunate to hold a number of different leadership roles in the areas of product development, program management, operations, and project management. I've been fortunate to work with enterprise organizations as well as startups, and my industry background is in e-commerce, finance, and healthcare. And I've been fortunate that because I've worked in the different industries, enterprise as well as startups, I found that there's a common connection there in terms of how we deliver on strategy, right? And how we struggle with the execution of that, right? What is it that we're building? Why are we building that? And how do we know that we've successfully built what it is that we set out to build, right? How do we measure against that? And so that's something that I work with teams and help them understand all of that. So, all right. So some of the topics that we're going to rush through today, and I do apologize. The OKR Foundations, we'll go over OKRs, why OKRs and why now, why it's important to understand that. We'll take a real quick look at OKRs for startups, right? Kind of what that looks like. We'll take a look at some definitions as well as some types of OKRs, and we'll talk about the importance of shared OKRs. We'll look at change management. What is change management and how it's applicable to OKRs? The 5 steps of change management. And then we'll also take a look at the OKR cycle, and we'll take a look at the implementation parameters, these 10 questions that we want to answer as part of any OKR rollout. And then we'll bring it home with some business delivery and OKRs, kind of paint that picture of what it all looks like. And if we have time, we'll jump into some anti-patterns and best practices with OKRs. So, all right. So my goal for today, my objective is to teach an awesome group of people about OKRs and make some fantastic connections. My key result is a thumbs up from 80% of attendees, right? That this was useful for you all. Key result number 2 is to connect with 5 awesome people on LinkedIn. And key result number 3, 2 client leads, right? So let's get into it. So real quickly, one of the stats I wanted to share with the group is that a 2018 MIT Sloan study found that the percentage of leaders at each level in the organization who can list their company's top priorities, 51% of those at the top team, right? These are our executives, can name the top 3 priorities of the company. Our senior execs, that's 22%. Our middle managers, that's 18%. And then our frontline supervisors, 13%, right? And so these are these are our top priorities, and a few of the team know what those top priorities are, right? So real quickly, let's take a look at some of what's involved when it comes to strategic misalignment, right? Oftentimes we see that our C-suite often assumes that everyone is on the same page, right? 51% of our leadership team, only 51% know what our top 3 are, right? So for the C-suite to assume that everyone is on the same page, kind of an oversight on that. When it comes to leadership teams, often fail to agree on company-wide priorities, right? We see that at the leadership layer where we have a disconnect there on priorities. And then we see that the sharpest decline when it comes to knowing what our priorities are is between our leadership teams and our direct reports. So it's just some interesting numbers there. And this one, this slide here, a couple weeks ago, Jesse Toronto presented, and he presented this slide here that's kind of representative of a typical framework when it comes to the factors that Fortune 200 acquirers look for when vetting a potential acquisition, right? And a couple of things that I found interesting here is that OKRs support a number of these different areas, in particular, management strength and portfolio and technology strength. What OKRs bring to an organization is strategy, adoption of best practices, right? Structured planning and strategic development. And that accounts for 25% of what is vetted there. When you look at portfolio technology strength, that helps with team process, research and development, and product development speed, right? We can get things quicker to the market, right? So, and OKRs support a large number of that. So real quickly, when it comes to adopting OKRs, why do we want to adopt OKRs? It's important that we answer that question and that we know why we're going to take our organization through this change management framework. Are we adopting OKRs because Google did it? That's a question, or that's a common answer that we hear as OKR coaches. Probably not the best reason to adopt OKRs. Is it because I read the book, right? There's a well-known book out there that a number of people will read and they say, okay, that seems pretty straightforward. Let's do that, right? But the real answer that we're looking for is because we just closed our Series A and we want to be the market leader in our industry by 2024. We are on a mission to provide small businesses with the opportunity to grow and succeed by becoming the market leader for small business financing. And we want to own 20% of the market by the end of 2023, right? And in order to do so, we need to scale our product and we need to scale our organization, right? Our engineering and our product teams, our marketing teams. And with that, we also have to scale our tech stack, right? So this is why we want to adopt OKRs, not because Google did it. Let's jump into some definitions real quick. In terms of OKRs, it's a change management framework, right? Used by organizations and teams to create consistency and then alignment between strategy and execution. It requires discipline and commitment, right? OKRs are not something that you set and forget. They do require that if you want to hit that weight loss goal, you're going to have that exercise routine. You're going to have that time that you step on the scale and monitor all of that, right? So not a set it and forget it framework does require discipline and commitment. It involves what we say yes and no to. If it's not part of our strategy, why are we doing it, right? So it gives us that flexibility in terms of what we say yes and no to. It allows us to quantify our hypotheses. It's a lot different when you look at a number and a goal that you want to hit and understanding what is it that I can do to hit that goal, right? That's that hypothesis part where we have to dissect that and understand, what is it that we need to do to hit that goal. And then the last part here is requires psychological safety. Psychological safety is one of those things within OKRs that is important because we're asking our teams to be aspirational. We're asking our teams to go out there and take risks, to set that bar really high. And without psychological safety, the knowing that I can take these risks without repercussions, without it being held against me, that's psychological safety, and it's tremendously important to the OKR framework. So what OKRs are not, though, they're not your KPIs, right? Your KPIs and your OKRs, two separate things. Oftentimes, though, we do see that as coaches, that our KPIs have become our OKRs for the organizations that we work with, but two separate things. They're not a list of tasks, right? What we commonly see as coaches as well is that we have these tasks that are masquerading as key results. But your tasks are your output, your key results are your outcomes, right? So two different things there. And they're not a substitute for strategy. We still need to know what our strategy is, right? Our OKRs help support the execution of that. And it's not to be used for individual performance management. That's a separate conversation. There are some different conversations around that, but that's a totally separate conversation. So, all right, so let's get into some definitions, right? What are objectives and key results? So the objective, think of that as the heart, right? That is the qualitative goal that we want to achieve. That is, it's ambitious, right? It's something that can be achieved by the team. But again, that's that qualitative goal that we want to achieve. It comes in two different flavors. It's aspirational or committed. And typically we want to have about 2 to 3 per cycle. But that varies kind of depending on your team and where you're at within the maturity of your OKR program. What makes a good objective, right? It inspires us. And we know why we're doing it right now. We know why it's important. It connects to our mission and our vision. And it's unambiguous, right? It's something that we understand. It's not written with all this fancy jargon, right? So it's pretty clear and straight to the point. And it's in our language. So if we have this language that is native to our company culture, we want to incorporate that into our objective, right? Use that language. So, and real quickly here, an example of an aspirational objective would be to provide small businesses with the opportunity to grow and succeed by becoming the market leader for small business financing. And a committed example there would be provide our customers with the confidence of security and compliance, right? So moving forward though, key results, think of those, that's the head, right? These are the quantitative outcomes that we want to achieve. This is how we know we've achieved our goal, because we've hit that number, right? And the emphasis there is on outcome over output, right? The outputs are the initiatives and the things that we do in order to reach that outcome, to reach that key result. What makes a good key result is that we've asked our question, what does awesome look like, right? If we knocked it out of the park, what does awesome look like? Is it outside of our comfort zone? Do we feel, that this is easy to achieve, or is it outside of that comfort zone? And then we want to incorporate cross-functional teams wherever we can, right? We want to create shared OKRs, and we'll talk a little bit about that real quickly as well. So, and then the initiatives. These are the things that we're going to be doing to hit our OKRs, right? Examples of initiatives would be, for example, we may want to run a 2-month free subscription campaign to acquire users of some sort, right? We may also want to A/B test our new user flow to see if that improves our signups. And then we may also want to run a campaign to reacquire previous customers. So, all right. So real quickly, we've got a couple different OKR types, right? We have our annual OKRs as well as our quarterly OKRs. Our annual OKRs are just that, right? They live for that annual period of time. They're typically developed at your executive level, right? So at that strategic level. And then our quarterly OKRs are typically those things that we execute on throughout the quarter. Those are also synonymous with our tactical OKRs, right? And so real quickly here, strategic and tactical OKRs. Strategic OKRs are going to be synonymous with those annual OKRs, with those company OKRs, and our tactical OKRs are going to be synonymous with those quarterly OKRs, right? These are the things that we're executing on in order to influence the key results that we've identified at that company level, right? So they support the strategy. And then real quickly, we have our aspirational and our committed key results. The difference between the two is that the aspirational, they're just that, right? They're aspirational in nature. They've got a 10% attainability, and versus our committed OKRs, those should be 100% attainable, right? We should hit those goals. The challenge with committed OKRs is that if we aren't hitting those committed OKRs, then we have a bigger concern. One thing to take into account when you are developing your OKRs is you want to consider the time to achieve those OKRs, right? Factor in the stuff that you're doing throughout your day and what those OKRs are truly, what we can truly achieve there. We want to also take into account that it's not for our business as usual stuff, right? So we've got our BAU work over here that we're doing. This is the keep the lights on stuff, but then we have our OKRs over here, right? And so we need to make sure that we understand our BAU stuff from our OKRs and the difference there. Shared OKRs. The reason we want to create shared OKRs is because often what we see when OKR implementations, when companies do it, is they'll often create siloed OKRs, right? So what we'll have is we'll have a sales set of OKRs, a marketing set of OKRs, technology, et cetera, right? Because we're creating these siloed OKRs. We typically do that because that's how our organizations are structured, right? And so it makes sense that we should follow that pattern. The problem when we do that, though, is that we're creating siloed OKRs, right? So sales is concerned with their OKRs, marketing is concerned with their OKRs, et cetera, right? And so we're doing what's best for our silos, but not what's best for the company. So when we create shared OKRs at our executive level, we're creating shared OKRs that then the teams can work on in a shared fashion as well, right? So we're creating collaborative OKRs between marketing and technology and product, et cetera, right? So shared OKRs versus those siloed OKRs. And real quickly, we're going to cruise through this change management stuff, but really change management, it's the actions that the business takes to change or adjust a significant component of its organization, right? It comes in two flavors, adaptive and transformational. These adaptive change management is like a new work from home policy, or the way that we take intake work for, for prioritization, something like that, right? Your transformational change management, these are much bigger in nature. This involves the way we structure our teams, the tools that we're using, the languages and the way we strategize and the meetings that we're having. It involves me as an individual member of this team. How is my role changing, right? Why do I have all of these new meetings on my calendar? So definitely a bigger ship to move when it comes to the difference between adaptive change management versus transformational. The 5 steps to change management. We want to prepare for the change, right? We want to create that sense of urgency. Why are we doing this? Why are we going through this change, right? Why are we taking the organization through all of this? Is it an opportunity that we can't miss, that we really need to focus on, right? Is there a change in the market that is concerning to us, threat in the market that we need to rally around, right? Why are we going through this? Create that sense of urgency. The vision and the roadmap. We want to paint that picture for the organization in terms of what our goals look like for this change, right? Who are the roles and the responsibilities within this change? What's in scope, what's out of scope, and really what does that timing look like, right? Help me understand when things are going to line up. And then when we implement those changes, we want to continue to drive that advocacy from our leadership teams that this, why we're doing this change management program, why it's important to the organization right now. We want to empower our employees with the training and the tools that they need, right? Setting them up for success through cadence and monitoring. And then when we embed those change, we want to continue with best practices. We want to prevent that tendency for the organization to slide back into some of those old patterns, right? And so we want to instill those best practices and push those forward. And then when we want to also focus on our progress and our results, right? How well have we done within this change management framework? And we want to build on any momentums that we've gained so that we can scale our program, right? So just 5 steps there to change management.
Hey, Jim, we're coming up on time, and I'd love to make sure that we have some time for the crew to ask some questions. I'm wondering if we need to either reschedule for you to give us the second half of this, but I would love to open it up to questions if you're open to that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no worries.
First question for me, and you guys can all put your questions in the chat, or otherwise you can unmute yourself, but I'm just wondering, Jim, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges for groups starting to implement OKRs? Like, what are the places where they trip, or how would you suggest overcoming those?
The biggest challenge that I've seen is, again, just organizations really not understanding the scope of what it takes to implement a program like this. Again, the emphasis on change management, it's extremely important to understand that side of adopting OKRs, again, because we are taking the organization through a significant amount of change in order to implement this framework. So it's more than just reading a book. It's more than just taking a couple of training courses. It's about understanding the different roadblocks and the different questions and challenges that I may have and that I may face as an organization as I'm implementing this framework. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is that we don't understand really the full scope of what it takes to implement a program like this.
And how do you suggest people wrap their heads around that scope? I mean, I get what you're saying, that like you don't know what you don't know. So are there ways that they can either audit, or are there tools that they can use to make that assessment?
I think the big thing starts with understanding why we want to adopt this framework, right? Why is it important to us now? What is it about our strategy that we need this level of structure within our organization? Where do we want to be a year from now, 2 years from now, et cetera, right? Are we looking to really scale our organization? Are we going through that growth phase as part of our startup journey, right? What does that look like? Why do we need to adopt this framework, and what is our strategy going forward?
Awesome.
Yeah.
I won't capitalize all the question time.
Yeah, no worries. What other questions do we have?
Feel free to unmute yourselves.
A question I have, and it may be relevant because a lot of people here are kind of starting something new. Something I've struggled with is like trying to come up with those sorry, what are they called? KR, kind of like those goals that you're really shooting for when you don't have a lot of data to back up, like based on the previous 6 months, we can maybe shoot for this, when it's something completely new as like an entrepreneur or founder. I guess just if you have any suggestions on like how to come up with actionable goals that you think you can hit.
Well, and I would encourage you to think through the outcome that you're trying to drive when it comes to that, right? And I mean, you take, for example, a new product that's coming to market, an MVP. I mean, we may not have baseline metrics around how many users we have, or how many subscriptions we may have, things of that nature, right? Because we're a new product. But we still kind of have a hypothesis in terms of what a good number looks like, right? And so again, the outcome would ideally be, X number of users. But for a new product, maybe we're not going to get that, right? So again, think through that outcome, and that'll help you understand in terms of your key results, what can I truly measure? And by the same token, if you don't have something to measure against, in many cases, you are just establishing baseline key results at that point, right? So, and that may be part of the exercise as well. But again, think through the outcome that you're hoping to achieve. So
that's awesome. Great advice. We're just past time, so I want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. So, Jim, are you willing to or able to share the presentation with the crew that's attended here today?
Absolutely, happy to. And you guys can take a look at it, come back to me with any questions. There's a lot of good content in there, and I apologize that I didn't get through it. But yeah, happy to share that. So
awesome. If you don't mind sending that to Hannah, she can distribute it. And if you've got questions, yes, please feel free to connect with Jim on LinkedIn. Is there a better way, Jim, that people should be reaching out to you?
No, just LinkedIn's the easiest way, and it's just Jim Apodaca on
awesome.
LinkedIn. So yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for your time today, Jim. This was fantastic. Great presentation. Look forward to next week. Tell your friends if they haven't asked to come to Midday Connect, and we'll see what we can do to help each other. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.